Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beneath the Silence, Healing the Wounds of Betrayal Trauma. Today, we're going to talk about intimate partner violence and betrayal trauma when abuse lives in the shadows. But I'm going to talk about a little bit more about this topic in a moment. So I want to welcome those back who have watched podcasts before and those who may be new to my podcast. Just as a reminder, I don't edit these podcasts. I like them to be real, raw, and vulnerable. And it's a place to form community, and so that you know that you're not alone. So today's topic, you may look at intimate partner violence and go, "Oh, that doesn't apply to me." And actually, it's quite a topic that it likely does apply. And especially if the perpetrator of your betrayal was an intimate partner. But I'm gonna continue on that stream in just a moment, okay? So I'm going to dive into this topic that is often very misunderstood. It's minimized, and really it's missed entirely, okay? And this is intimate partner violence within the context of betrayal trauma. And even though I'm going to talk about IPV, the message in today's podcast is very much clear and transferable to other forms of relationships as well. And that could be parent-child. So maybe this happened to you when you were a child. Um, so this could be, for example, instead of being an intimate partner, this could be the perpetrator may be a boss, an instructor, a family member, clergy, coach, etc. The violence that I'm going to talk about includes all forms. So just remember, I've just said that, all forms. And that is relational to all types of abuse and betrayal trauma, regardless of who the perpetrator is. And I know if you have watched my podcast before, you know that I mentioned this psychological abuse over and over and over and over and over again, because it is the mainstay, the main compartment, if you will, in the construction of um, betrayal. Okay. And that's the deception, that's the gaslighting, manipulation. Okay. So, like I said, when I'm talking about intimate partner violence, it is relational to all kinds of abuse and betrayal trauma, regardless of who the perpetrator is. So, if intimate partner violence is not a part of your story, replace the intimate partner piece with who the perpetrator in your story is or was. You may find that you identify with parts, if not all, of what I'm going to talk about today in this podcast. Okay? When most people hear violence, they picture a bruise, broken bone, a raised fist, but violence is actually much broader. Okay? Violence can be psychological, so there's the psychological abuse, spiritual, financial, sexual, digital, emotional. Violence can occur even when no hand is raised. So think about that and remember that. You may need to sit with it. This is another very heavy episode. Okay. So please plan to do some self-care after watching this, whatever that self-care looks like for you. And if you need to, please reach out to me. We can hop on a Zoom call. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We can hop on a Zoom call and just make sure that you're grounded. Make sure that you're safe. Okay. So, and in betrayal trauma, especially when we integrate the framework of integrity abuse disorder, and I've mentioned that in a few podcasts that was developed by Dr. Omar Minwala, we begin to understand that abuse is not just an act, it's a pattern. Okay. It's a pattern rooted in entitlement, chronic deception, sexual acting out, objectification, and the systemic violation of the betrayed partner's dignity and basic human rights. Whether physical force is present or not, what survivors experience is harm, trauma, and often a profound fear, even if that fear has never been accompanied by a visual or visible image, injury, okay? Like a bruise, hand slap, red, Today, we're going to break this open with care, clarity, and truth. And um, it's called It's Still Violence. This came from a Facebook post I'm just going to pull it up here. And I'm sorry. I wish it saved for me. So I apologize for making you wait. Now I can't find it, of course. I may just come back to it. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Great impressions on the show.
It's still domestic violence or intimate partner violence. They don't have to hit you, choke you, or slam your head into a wall in order for it to be domestic violence or intimate partner violence. They can degrade you, humiliate you, blame you, scream at you, lie to you, cheat on you, and withhold finances, or even just try to control you. And it is still domestic violence, which is another name for intimate partner violence. It is still that. Okay. So, intimate partner violence is not just physical, as I just talked about. So, when we hear IPV, most systems, legal, medical, therapeutic, default to physical assault. But the field of trauma, especially if somebody's trained in betrayal trauma, along with decades of survivor testimony, makes something very, very clear. Violence is any act or pattern that exerts power and control and causes harm, fear, and or loss of safety. So we talked about coercion, coercive control, and covert control last podcast. And that's why this one I followed it up because they talk more now about the violence of it. Okay. So this means violence includes chronic lying, gaslighting, threats, emotional degradation, stonewalling or punishment as punishment, financial control, technology surveillance, withholding affection for control, spiritual manipulation, and covert intimidation, and sexual coercion. So this also is from Facebook. It's from Pain Zone I've reached out to these different sites because these really spoke to me about citing them. So I'm going to cite them as I've found them. Um, and anyway, I'll put that's in the description of the podcast. Okay. So sexual coercion is a woman having sex to avoid the partner or whomever it is, sulking, tantrums, passive aggression, guilt tripping, or abandonment is not consenting. She's being coerced. That's not a relationship. That's sexual servitude under emotional duress. And far too many women have been conditioned to believe this is what compromise looks like. And it's not. It's coercion, sexual coercion. Okay. Survivors of betrayal trauma often say, he never hit me, but I have never been more afraid in my life. I used to say, after I found out about my husband, he had never hit me, but there was definitely financial control. There was definitely withholding affection for control. There was definitely covert intimidation, hands down. There was a whole lot of sexual coercion. There was definitely chronic lying and gaslighting. Emotional degradation happened as well. Stonewalling as punishment. He used to, part of the withholding affection, he wouldn't come near me. The stonewalling as punishment. If I didn't do what he wanted sexually, he wouldn't talk to me for days. He would ignore me. He wouldn't eat with me. He would stay out in the garage or, do whatever. But there just was no interaction. If our children were around, um, he would be more himself. But now I know that was an act. Um, but if it was just him and I, unless I did what he wanted. So when I say, but never be more afraid, I used to call, especially it was after I found out about his addictions, the anger that would be in his body and in his eyes. I had never been more fearful for my life. I used to call it the demon. When the demon showed up in his eyes, I was scared beyond belief, and he had never hit me. Okay. So why? Because fear isn't created only by fists. Fear is created by instability, secrecy, double lives, deception, and the constant sense that the ground beneath your feet could disappear at any moment. Many survivors live in a state of hypervigilance, even if they do not identify as being in a violent relationship. And here's the heartbreaking truth. Most survivors underestimate their own experience because the abuse wasn't physical. I was one of them. This is another, this was also from Facebook, and it's called Family Court Navigator, and they're out of England and Wales. And they posted or made a post that says intimate partner violence isn't about anger. It is about control. If it was the anger they couldn't manage, they would explode at everyone, but they don't. They pick one person, or maybe even a couple, behind closed doors. That was my husband, and then my ex-husband. And they stop when it benefits them. When he got what he wanted, it would stop. So anger management teaches calming down. Okay. Intimate partner violence, abuse, needs accountability and a challenge to the belief I'm entitled to control you because that's what they believe. They are trying to control the situation, the perpetrators. It's all about control, not the anger. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about integrity abuse disorder. And again, this is from Dr. Minwalla's framework, which is a landmark contribution in understanding betrayal trauma. Okay. Identity abuse disorder explains abuse not as isolated incidents, but as a multi-dimensional system of harm, including chronic lying, entitlement and sexual acting out, emotional immaturity, objectification, covert and overt manipulation. So that is the covert control and coercive control. Okay. Boundary violations. I gave you when I talked about in the podcast about anger, how anger for us who have experienced betrayal trauma, how it differs, and how that anger when my husband at the time um, opened a locked door with whatever when I was changing. Exploitation of the partner's trust, treatment of the partner as an object, not a person, systemic patterns of gaslighting and deception. In his research and clinical work, Minwalla emphasizes that when a partner's integrity is chronically compromised, the betrayed partner experiences an abusive system, whether physical force is present or not. This abuse is not only emotional, it is attachment violence, right? Because it severs the attachment. It is psychological violence, and that's that psychological abuse. It is sexual violence, particularly when consent is violated through deception. And in a few weeks, I'm going to do a podcast on porn and sex addiction because I call it a pandemic itself. I have been asked by those who have watched my podcasts. They've reached out and if I would do one specific to that. So I'm going to do that. But know that many again, of the traits in these addictions are relatable and transferable to other addictions and other types of abuse. Okay. Um, it is relational violence because the partner's nervous system is repeatedly destabilized. Survivors often internalize, and we've talked about that, this in ways that sound like, I must be overreacting. It's not abuse because he didn't hit me. He said it was my fault he acted out. He promised he would never do it again. But betrayal in the form of deceit, secret sexual lives, gaslighting, characterological exploitation, so an attack on your character, okay, functions as violence against the partner's psyche and sense of self. Betrayal trauma, is intimate partner violence. We can take out the IP, like I said at the beginning. Betrayal trauma is violence. End stop, full stop, period. Exclamation mark, actually. So in this section, I'm going to talk about how non-physical violence damages the brain and the body. And this, you may find that you relate to many of these symptoms. They often describe, so survivors often describe symptoms like being confused, not knowing what to believe, difficulty concentrating, shaking, chest tightness, hypervigilance, sleep disruption, chronic anxiety, freezing. That's in the freeze, fight, flight, fawn, or fold. The freeze component. Feeling like they're losing themselves, that they don't know who they are. That is the, identity that they have lost. Okay. These symptoms are not dramatic. They're biological reactions to relational danger. When someone's intimate partner shatters trust, lies repeatedly, engages in sexual exploitation, or destabilizes the home environment, the betrayed partner's limbic system perceives danger, threat, unsafety. This activates the fight response. I have to confront this. The flight response. I need to get away. Can't look at them. The freeze response. I feel paralyzed. The fawn response. Maybe if I appease him, and that's what I did. I just sexually, I just appeased. Maybe it will stop. And I know if I did what he wanted, it would be over in an hour or two. And he was into some real fetish shit. BDSM that I hated with a passion, and often would cry through, but he didn't stop. He didn't stop. I just needed to get it over with so I could pretend, and that's betrayal blindness, that everything was okay. That everything was okay. The brain interprets deception and manipulation as violence to the attachment bond because attachment is supposed to create safety. When someone violates that safety chronologically or chronically, the brain and the body respond as if they are under attack because they are. I'm going to break down types of violence that occur without physical force, but with profound impact. So the first one is emotional and psychological violence. Okay. This includes, like I've said over and over, gaslighting, but it's also blame shifting. So this is the Darvo that from Jennifer Fried. They deny they've done anything wrong. They accuse you of doing it. Well, if you only did this, or you made me angry, or you did A, B, or C, and then reverse victim offender. So now they become the victim. Okay. So that's blame shifting. Silent treatment used as control. That's what I had: the gaslighting, the blame shifting, the silent treatment, degrading comments, rewriting reality. So you're second guessing your own reality, minimizing harm. All of those I experienced. This form of violence erodes identity, intuition, and self-worth. The second part is sexual violence through betrayal. Sexual betrayal can be a form of sexual violence when consent is violated through deception, hidden sexual behaviors expose the partner to risks. He was in fetish groups, orgies. Pornography addiction becomes coercive. Fetish behavior is imposed or hidden. So fetish behavior was hidden for years, most of our marriage, until it was not. The partner is sexually objectified. I was constantly sexually objectified. Survivors often feel violated, even if they lack the language for what they have experienced. The third is financial abuse. This is controlling money, hiding spending, or destabilizing the household financially. And I think I've said this in a previous podcast. I had no idea where our investments were. And every time I asked about where they were, I would, oh, let's go watch a movie. I'll get that stuff for you. I'll get the passwords. I'll write it all out. And it never happened. And to find out that it was gone. And when the sale of our house went through, that we lived in for 27 years, to find out we were mortgaged for $100,000 more than when we originally built 27 years prior. The next one, the fourth, is spiritual and moral violence. So we talked in an earlier podcast, one of the earliest ones about moral injury, and that's what this is about. So it's using religion or morality to shame, silence, or control a partner. The next is coercive control, which we talked about last episode. A pattern of domination that removes the partner's freedom and autonomy. And the next is digital violence. That's tracking devices, monitoring phones, secret online identities. So while he didn't have tracking devices on my phone, he always wanted me to call him or send him a text when I was leaving my office. And he said, "Oh, I'll get, I'll put the pizza," because he only did, right, boiled hot dogs or frozen pizza. "I'll put the pizza in the oven so it'll be ready when you get home." So I can, it's getting dark out or the weather's not as good. So, I'll be on the lookout for you. No, it was so he could stop doing what he was doing. So those are, instead of a tracking device, he had me conditioned thinking that he was being a loving husband. But no. And the secret online identities, he had multiple, including in dating sites. So none of these involve physical hitting, but all involve power, control, harm, and fear. So, why survivors struggle to recognize intimate partner violence in betrayal? Okay. There are no bruises. They may be told they're the problem. And remember the internalization, and we believe that. The abusive partner may appear charming to outsiders. Oh boy, was he a charmer, master charmer. Religious or cultural conditioning may normalize suffering. Can go back to the charmer part. In front of any other person, he was this one person. He was the person that would do anything for anybody. And he was so charming. He had to be the center of attention. You always knew when he was in the room. Always. Okay. Center of attention, loud, obnoxious, but very much a charmer. But when we were alone, completely different. The religious or cultural conditioning may normalize suffering. The partner minimizes or denies harm. And that part of that can be betrayal trauma blindness. So it's not about beating yourself up, it's about survival. So giving yourself grace if you know now what you didn't know then. The fear consequences of financial, relational, and also family. What does that look like? We are definitely going over 30 minutes today, by the way, just so you know. Often betrayal trauma occurs alongside betrayal blindness, as I talked about. This involves the brain protecting the survivor through not seeing what is too dangerous or too destabilizing to acknowledge. This is not weakness, it is a survival strategy. Now, we have to start reclaiming our language, naming abuse as abuse, if you're ready to. And again, no pressure, give yourself grace. It's not about beating yourself up. It is about when you're ready to name it, you will. Survivors often tell me, "I don't want to call it abuse. Abuse feels too strong. What if I'm exaggerating?" But here's the truth. Naming abuse is not an accusation. It's an act of liberation. When survivors call abuse what it is, several things happen. Confusion decreases, self-blame softens, clarity increases, boundaries strengthen, and hope for healing opens. Language matters. Naming matters. Truth matters. And survivors deserve access to the language that validates what they have lived through. So now what do we do for support, safety, and healing pathways? Okay. If you are listening and you are beginning to wonder whether you experienced intimate partner violence or perpetrator violence within your betrayal trauma, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not imagining it, and you deserve safety. Support may include a betrayal trauma informed therapist. Ask them, interview them. What do they know about betrayal trauma? What are they willing to learn? A domestic violence advocate, a sexual trauma therapist, medical support, legal consultation, a safety plan, community, and peer support. Okay. Healing is entirely possible. And reclaiming your safety, the voice, your truth is part of that journey. I'm going to read this statement. I changed it a little bit to fit my beliefs. I don't like using the word should or shouldn't because we're shitting ourselves then. And there was another word in here that I just didn't align with. It just seemed to place a little bit of blame. So I just changed it up. But this was why, which it was a picture post also on Facebook. And it was called The Moment Everything Changed. She stopped asking, "What's wrong with me?" and started asking, "What am I tolerating that I don't have to?" That one question shift saved her life because the problem was never her. It was the treatment that she never deserved. It's coming to realize you didn't deserve what you received. I've got 3 takeaways for you from today. I'd like you just to think about these. And again, reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or if anything comes up for you. Please, please, you can reach out to me. My email, sandy@sandrajoy.ca, or go to my website. There's a form that you can fill out. I receive that. So it's sandrajoy.ca. If for some reason I haven't gotten back to you and within like 48 hours, reach out again, you know, because maybe there's a glitch in the website or something that I have no idea about. Okay. So, intimate partner violence or perpetrator violence is far broader than physical assault. Violence includes emotional, psychological, sexual, financial, digital, and spiritual harm, even when no physical injury occurs. The second part is integrity abuse disorder helps us to understand IPVA and perpetrator violence as a system rather than a single act. So patterns of deception, entitlement, sexual acting out, and manipulation constitute abuse, whether visible or not. And the third is naming abuse is an essential part of reclaiming safety and healing. It's that liberation. Okay. Recognizing your experience as violence does not make you dramatic. It makes you truthful. And I want to thank you for joining me today on Beneath the Silence, Healing the Wounds of Betrayal Trauma. And remember that healing is possible even from our deepest, darkest wounds. If this episode resonated with you, please let me know. Leave a comment or send me an email. Again, sandy@sandrajoy.ca. And it's in the description. My email address or website is in the description. If you want more resources or support, reach out to me through my website at sandrajoy.ca. And for those of you who may be interested in my betrayal trauma course, and I talk about all the facets of betrayal trauma, you can also find that on my website. And if you're able, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share the podcast so that others may learn and find community and not to feel so alone. And I can also understand if your privacy is such that you're not able to share. That's okay. If you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So join me next week when we continue the conversation as I dive into betrayal trauma triggers. And you may find a few triggers that you didn't even realize were actual triggers. Okay, because we tend to, you know some of our triggers, but quite honestly, we know less than 1% of all those triggers that activate us. And until next time, take gentle care of yourself. And remember, I see you, I hear you, and I believe you. Thank you. Until we meet again.